Hey everyone, Kumar Dattatreyan here with Agile Meridian and the Meridian Point. And today I am pleased to welcome my colleague and partner, Michael Jebber, on the stage here in a second. We're going to be talking about continuous improvement and unlocking continuous improvement inside of your organization. We see it as a bit of a paradox that people talk about continuous improvement, but then don't really dedicate the time to continually improving. So we're going to talk about that and specifically how the Disruptor Method helps unlock continuous improvement. So Michael Jebber is really a pioneer here. He's the creator of the Disruptor Method that we talk about and we use with our clients. And so without further ado, I'm going to bring him on stage. Hey, Michael.
Hello.
Michael. I don't call you Michael. I call you Mike. Why am I calling you
Mike? I thought
that
was kind of funny, actually. I was calling me Michael. I said, this is new.
You know what it is? It's because I work with so many Michaels that it's hard to switch between Michael and Mike. So
there are a lot of Mikes around. Yes.
That's and some people like to be called Michael and some people like to be called Mike. But you like Mike and I like Mike.
It's nice. It's short, easy.
It is. Yeah, it's easy. So Mike, about that paradox, right? So, and the paradox is this, that companies want to invest in innovation, want to invest in continuous improvement. So they want to do these things on one hand, and then when reality sets in, it's like, we don't have time to do that. You know, we're busy, we're overworked, we're overwhelmed, and that kind of stuff gets shoved to the side. It gets forgotten. So what are some, in your opinion, what are some misconceptions, if you will, about continuous improvement?
I think it's that whole idea around the amount of time that it takes. It's interesting. You're so spot on about the paradox with this, and everybody not only want to do it, they know they have to do it. It's not even a question anymore. It's not like a luxury or a, hey, this is going to be our ticket to getting ahead. It's literally to stay on the tracks these days, right? So with the amount of change that we have going on. So it's interesting to see that, knowing that they have to do it, and even sometimes planning, improvement katas and learning about lean and going in and doing investigation, bringing consultants in, all these other things, that they're still they'll do the activities to ramp up these types of concepts. And then to your point, they fall off because daily work hits them in the side of the head the very next day. And all of a sudden it's back to putting out fires. And, the interesting thing about the paradox, and I think the biggest misconception that drives that paradox, is the amount of time that it takes. There are techniques and ways to work where you slow down a little bit, trying to get some of these things initiated. But the hit in terms of time and capacity is very small compared to what people think it will be. Even if you're doing larger types of larger environments that you're working on, and then you start actually becoming part of that daily activity versus another activity that you're adding to the calendar that you now have to manage and work into all of your capacity issues, which are probably, in most cases, already overcooked and overbooked. So that's where I think the largest, what we've seen is the cause of the paradox. And it's also the reason why a lot of folks either start it and never continue with it, or really kind of knowing that they need to do it are hesitant to even start the effort because they're worried about disrupting all of their commitments that they have on their calendar.
Yeah, I agree. In my experience, with agile teams, the retrospective is probably the most useful and also the most underutilized and maybe in some cases hated ceremony, because teams are forced to go to another meeting and talk about continuous improvement, and they prioritize a few things, but then they don't have the time to actually do them. So what's the point of spending an hour in a meeting where and maybe at first the teams are a little bit more enthusiastic about it. It's like, oh, this is new, this is different, we're actually going to improve things. But then the next sprint comes around and they're overloaded with work, and so the things that they prioritize or they thought that would lead to improvement, they don't have time for. And I wonder if I'm going to pull on a thread that you said, making it part of your daily work, right? The continuous improvement should be something you're doing all the time. And
Yes.
I remember an experience with another client where we did make it part of the daily work. It was just every day. It's like, what can we improve today? And we had the team came up with things that they wanted to do. And of course, they were afforded the time to do that, so I think it's cultural as well. What are your thoughts there?
Absolutely. And we've seen it. You and I have seen it in companies we've worked with together and some of our clients. This idea, you've heard me say this a lot, obviously. One of the things I talk about with senior leaders when we talk about building a continuous improvement mindset, but building it into your muscle memory, building it into the tactical daily and weekly activities that you do, is really focused around three things: who, when, and how often. Those are the three biggest things that I talk to leaders and stakeholders and supporters of change. And I say, this is the three things you're going to notice the biggest difference in. And it will feel a little clunky, and it'll take a couple of weeks. It doesn't take a long time. We're just talking 3-4 weeks, like a month, to kind of get it going and get it installed and to actually own it and work it. But once you've done that, if the senior leaders and the organization is committed to a lifestyle change and not a diet, right? In actually making this part of what they do on a regular basis, what you start to notice is that, people go, how are we going to do that with so much frequency when we don't have time now? Well, when you're doing things in a more frequent pattern, you're breaking it down to the point where you have very little to talk about each time you meet. So you're breaking it down. You're being more focused. You're being more direct and specific with the time. You tend to get better results. You tend to have to meet less. You actually reduce the amount of times that you have to meet on something to deliver it or to get it across or to get it finished. And that's what people start to realize when they start to see this in action is it felt weird because we're doing different things in a different pattern. But when we look at it overall, for example, we worked with the VNA back in 2015. 9 senior leaders there. We saved each one of those 9 leaders 8 hours a week in installing just one technique that we could do for continuous improvement for them in their own calendars, meeting with their people. They all got a day a week back, basically almost 40 weeks or 20 weeks worth of time in a year that they're getting extra capacity back on. And it was a massive amount. And you think about the financial ramifications, let alone capacity and time. And it didn't take more than a couple of months to actually stick. So it's not something that you have to do that's going to take a year and a lot of money and a lot of this. It's not a big lift. And that's, I think, where that biggest misconception comes into play. When they first see that first item that you work on, they see that happen. Now they want it everywhere. And it does tend to get pulled through the system once they start to see some success. But it takes commitment of a leadership group and a commitment to a lifestyle change in the culture to do this, because you're fundamentally changing the way you operate on a daily and weekly basis.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that story. I know that you've shared it with me before. I wanted to pull on something else, this notion of a catalyst team. So in the Disruptor Method, we talk about this catalyst team. Can you describe for the audience, what is a catalyst team?
So in our world, when we talk about the catalyst team, it's really that team that kind of gets things going. There's probably multiple catalyst teams in an organization. If you think about from the organizational, the senior leadership, the strategic senior leadership that kind of has the hand on the rudder for the organization, where we're going, who we're going to be, what is our why, what is our mission and vision, what kind of impact do we want to have? That's one catalyst team. And that's the one we typically start with, because once you have that support, we call it having an air cover in the organization, and people are more likely to accept and work with and move towards change when they know leadership in the organization is supporting that change and that effort. So one of the catalyst teams would be that senior leadership group. And then what you end up having, depending on the organizational structure and the size, the scale, the footprint across the globe, you have different types of catalyst teams that go into different areas and can help that lift that area up in the same way. Starting with the top is really key. We've done it before where you started at other areas, maybe in a division at a very large company, But it really is key to start at that top if you want to have sustained change, if you want to have a lifestyle change. They're the ones that can kind of start that lifestyle change and keep everybody on the wagon, per se, while we get through some of the actual changing elements to the point where we're starting to see the results. And then after that, it's simply a matter of where does it make sense to have a catalyst team? You can have catalyst teams in different industries for different segments of those industries and what they do.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. So what would you say is the role of a catalyst team and I know what the answer is going to be, but I want to ask it in supporting and sustaining a continuous improvement culture?
Well, it's really critical. Having that alignment and consensus amongst a group of people that are responsible for a specific area is everything that is required in order to make a lifestyle change. If you don't have that alignment and consensus, you have to look at we have our collaboration maturity model. We talk about that with clients, right? And we use that to try to help people get to a certain point of collaboration maturity where a catalyst team can be impactful. It can sustain something and moving it forward. Having a team that owns that lifestyle change is really critical. You and I have talked in the past where my first introduction into Agile software development and Scrum was a disaster. It was horrible. I had 80 of my friends and colleagues go through a terrible year of trying to learn how to do this the wrong way, with the wrong types of intentions and the wrong lifestyle change. And what we found is we didn't have an owner of the change. We had people that were still trying to do new techniques and inject it into our work to get different results, but nobody owned the actual change in the way that we were going to operate to help us move from where we were to this new way of working, this new lifestyle. So that catalyst team really owns that maturation process of going from what you're doing to something new. And then what it can eventually do is continually add to and enhance that. So the continuous improvement portion of that is that group sustaining itself and staying around. Probably have different players. People will move in and move out once it becomes mature, but having that group still own the opportunity to continuously improve that is really, really critical. So they play a big role in not only just getting it kicked off, but making sure it doesn't fall down and making sure it stays moving forward as they move forward.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I think there's so many great things about the Disruptor Method. One of them, of course, is the Catalyst team. But I think more importantly, what the Disruptor Method does is help teams, leadership teams, execution teams, the doers and the leaders, both really embrace this continuous improvement mindset, right? So because it teaches these teams how to balance the rigors of the day-to-day grind, if you will, with what's needed to help the teams become more sustainable, the work that they do more sustainable, and deliver more value. And I think that's what's really pretty nifty about it. I want to switch to talent. One of the things that we talk about a lot is the ability for the Disruptor Method to help leadership teams and companies in general unleash their talent and unlock hidden opportunities. What would you say, in your experience, are some early signs that indicate that a company's talent pool has started to become untapped?
Yeah, I think this is a key element to this. And I love the word unleash. I love that we use that word unleash because it really feels like that in an organization, simply because the talent themselves, when they start to feel the ability to impact their environment, to start actually making real change that they're interested in seeing and that they want, that they've looked at and want to make happen, you see this euphoria come over the group and you see this positive charge that happens and you start getting that pull system moving. It really is an unleashing. Or an untapping in some cases, right? But how do you know that it's happening? When you have that senior leadership catalyst team we're talking about, and I often talk to leaders about this when I'm talking to them initially. And what's funny is I ask them the question after we've worked together for 6 months to a year, and the question is, does your organization thrive when you are not there? And nobody says yes for the folks that decide to work with us, right? They know they've got this challenge. It is not working in that manner. They're having to be there a lot, and their senior staff's having to be there a lot. And a lot of manager time is going not towards looking to the future for whatever the next big thing is, or working on their next new opportunity, or trying to avert the next big issue that comes down the road. Their time is being spent on being on the stuff that's going out the door, or the service that's being provided. And that is a recipe for not being able to grow or improve. It's also a recipe for getting hit by VUCA, the volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. So when you really start to notice this, there's two things. From a senior leadership's point of view, they're not having to manage or run or even improve on day-to-day operations. They're seeing they're being released and freed up from day-to-day work and day-to-day operations to look into strategy, true strategic environments, strategic moves, and looking towards the future of the organization and starting to build ramps and roadways towards that future. The operations are being handled by the folks that are responsible for doing that, by all the people that got hired to do that work in the first place. So that's one key indicator. The other indicator is you start having your talent come to you with opportunities. They all of a sudden have now got more time because we've increased operational efficiency. We've got operational excellence going on now, but it's not being driven by the managers, the senior leaders, and the strategic leaders. It's being driven by the people that are close to the work, by middle management, by the folks on the line doing the services, building the products. And they're the ones bringing ideas that are happening both for continuous improvement, for operations, and for sales, and for marketing, and for the different elements of what they do, and also bringing them ideas in terms of ways that they could bring on new products, grow their business, add on a complementary service or a system, or even tackle a problem that has been a problem for a very long time. And now they've not only come up with a solution, but they have a plan to get there, or they come up with an answer or an idea of how to handle it. They have a plan to get there, and they figured out and given you a plan on how they're going to do it. And now all you're doing as the senior leader is getting on board with that and supporting it and not driving it. Those are two of the things that happen. When you start to see those two things happening, you're really close to tipping the scale to becoming what we call a D4, where you're a disruptor. You've started to disrupt yourself, and it will, if you continue forward on that, and typically once you've reached that point, you're going over that curve, you're going downhill, you will start to disrupt your space significantly over the next year or two.
I love the way you answered that question. You took the positive side of the equation. And the question, maybe I didn't ask it clearly enough. It was, what are the signs that a workforce is untapped, meaning they're demotivated, they're disengaged, they're, all of these things, right? And I love the way you answered it, because you took the positive. What are the ways, with signs that employees are starting to become tapped? They're being included, they're being engaged more in the process. And I don't know if that's just this. I know you. I've known you now for many years, and that's just the positive nature.
I'm a glass half full guy. I always am. Yeah, exactly. So I tend to lean that way quite a bit. But yes, I mean, that's really what you're looking for. If you're not seeing those types of things, if you're trying to get to this point and you're not seeing that, there's probably an issue around the collaboration maturity. There's a participation or visibility element between the different groups of the organizations. Maybe siloing hasn't started to be tackled enough yet, or there's still some trust to be built across the organization between operations and leadership.
Yeah.
To the point to where you and I have seen this before. We used to talk about this with empowered teams, right? Early on, people would go in and say, hey, this empowered team thing sounds like a great way to go. Hey, team, you're empowered. Now go show me the results. And everybody's like, I don't know what that means. And I feel like you're setting me up to make me the fall person on this,
You can only be empowered if you feel safe enough to make mistakes.
If there's safety. So that might be an indicator as to if you're not seeing that happen literally within the first 6 months, and even sometimes first three months. If you haven't seen that type of movement, then those are typically the things that are still out there that you need to tackle. Whether you see them or not, they're there. And it's the only reason why this incredible amount of talent, which you spend a lot of money on and a lot of time finding, is not taking this off of your plate as a senior leader and allowing you to really go out there and drive more opportunity into the system.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I don't have any, I mean, there's so much more we can talk about in terms of continuous improvement and the paradox that it presents to a lot of organizations that we work in. And there's so much more we can talk about in terms of how we, us coaches, can help, help solve it, and certainly what the Disruptor Method does. Is there anything you'd like to share to sort of close out this talk?
Yeah, I think continuous improvement, it's a concept that is really, really powerful. And it's something that you should be injecting into your daily and weekly activities. It's not easy to figure out how to do sometimes. And it doesn't take an army of 100 people for 5 years to get this done. It's just not that hard. Companies have gotten to where they are because they're successful and they're strong, and there's a lot of smart, talented, intelligent people that all want to win and succeed. And we've never really seen a person sitting there that comes into work and goes, I'm going to just ruin everybody's day. That is my goal today, to do that. Yeah. And so, when you think about it's very small things that are applied with rigor, with intent and intention. And you don't have to do them all at once. You can start out putting them in and dropping them in as small pieces. And we help folks understand what is the amount of change you can take on. So we're going to start at this rate. And that's different for every organization because they're starting from a different point. But don't be discouraged by the fact that it hasn't happened, even if you tried it several times. A lot of times it's simply you haven't found the right way to make it a lifestyle change for you. You haven't had somebody who can get you there and help you stay there long enough that you no longer need that person behind you going, hey, tapping you on the shoulder. Remember this. It's become a part of who you are, and it really is achievable. And I don't want people to just really think about the fact that regardless of how many times it may not have worked, it is a real thing. It's a solved problem. It's just not solved with your organization yet. And that's what we like helping people do. We get a lot of joy out of doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Michael, oh my God, Mike.
See, we haven't talked enough recently. You're starting to get more formal with me.
I think so. Maybe that's what it is, because we've been sort of
kind of dispersed
so busy with our engagements and stuff that we haven't really talked as much as we used to, right?
Absolutely.
So looking forward to that. And thank you so much for coming on the show and supporting all of us, really, and at Agile Meridian and the Meridian Point. And we will see you all. Thanks for watching. See you all in the next episode. Thanks for watching.
This has been great. Thank you, Kumar, for all of these. You've done an awesome job in driving all this information out to everybody. So keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Will do.
Bye-bye.